Underscore,
All right.
underscore.
This is Ed
main.
Cawthorn's class on Python
Underscore,
at
underscore.
Manchester Community College, week 8. That's something unique
And
to the modules.
it's
It says
basically
when you
on
run the
building
module, you
modules.
run a
That's
main.
what this whole
I don't
class is
generally
about, is
put that in
building
my
modules and
I
making
generally
modules
test
work.
my modules inside my modules one at a time, and don't put that in
Couple
there
of
and call
problems
my
I ran
modules
into.
in and use them.
But
That underscore
I decided
underscore main
that
tells the
the
module
way
to
I
sit
would
there
do
and
this
check
is
and see
to
who's running this module. If you're
make a
running this
PowerPoint
module
screen
locally
here.
inside the module,
Well, it's not PowerPoint,
then
it's a
it's going
DOS
to use the
screen.
underscore main. If
And
you're calling the module
try and work
from
with
another
it.
process,
There's a
and
couple of
using it
different
as an
reasons I'm
import,
doing this. One
then
of the
it's not
reasons
going to
is
run the
I'm
underscore
looking to
underscore
start
main.
recording some of these
Okay.
videos
Confused enough?
for the web.
Sounds really
Therefore,
bizarre.
I want
That's
to
why I
have
don't use it as
some
in
consistency.
beginning classes.
And by recording
So
for the
if you
web,
run
I mean
across
not
the
just for
underscore
our
main
uses, but for other people's
in
and
your
future
readings,
uses.
it's important
so
to
that I'm
know
not
how to work with
constantly
the
recording
underscore
these
main,
things
but
over
we're
and
not going to
over.
deal
I
with
can
that
take ones
right
that are
now.
really
We'll
good
deal with that in the
and
future.
keep them, and take ones that are really bad, trash them, and re-record them and not lose any continuity. So that's what I'm attempting to do.
All
here.
right.
That's why you see all this confusion.
Oh, Kurt, this definition was courtesy of
This
tutorial
right here
points.
is a screen.
I use tutorial points
Remember
a lot
last
because,
week I went
one,
into
it keeps
great
me on track.
great detail
And
about
two,
how
it does
all
provide
programs
me
are
with
screen
definitions.
driven. Well, it's okay to have
In
a
my
program that's
experience,
screen driven, but
the
somewhere
modules
along
can
the
have
line,
as many
somebody's got to
routines
sit
as you
there
want in them.
and give
If
you
want
an idea of what
550
screen driven
routines
is.
in a module,
You might as well form a
550
kumbaya
deaths.
circle,
There's no
because
reason you can't have
if you lose
550
track of continuity, you're going to only
You have
want to
have
see this
some way to
again.
manage it.
This is a screen driven program.
That
It
stuff
is
just
actually
isn't
a
there
collection
because it's not
of
managed.
50 some odd screens that I sat down and I wrote in an Excel spreadsheet, and then just had a Python program read them and paint my screens for me. Let's take a look at, take a break. Well, it's easy to
We
do.
already took the break, so
Skip
this one.
I can't stress enough the
I have
importance
long
of
carried a depository of code.
using
That's actually
building
quite
a
true.
Python program.
Take
I'm going
a
to make
look
those
at my
letters a
thumb
little bit
drive
bigger.
here.
Of building a Python program with modules, which is this PC. A lot of students
now,
don't
the E drive.
like to use
Python
modules
code depository.
I've never
Has a
figured
whole
out
bunch of
why.
utilities in it.
But
that I
let's see
write.
if we can go to 36.
carry them
without
around
causing too
with
much
me.
misery.
Why? Because my memory ain't so
And
good
then
no
we'll
more.
just have to
And
shrink
I've
this down
found
a little
that I
bit
make
so that I can see
99% of my
bottom
mistakes
line.
in typing errors.
Grow this.
Once I get something
I
up and
can't see
running,
my
if I'm going to
bottom
use
line.
it
Well, I
over
don't
and
need to see
over and
my
over
bottom line. I
again,
know
I
what I'm
stick it
doing
in a
anyway.
module somewhere and
But
I keep it there.
A lot of students
And then
don't.
when I need it, I go out and grab that module. It doesn't matter if
They
my
develop their
module has
diffs
500
inside
diffs
of
in
their
it.
program, and
If
then
I only
take those
use
diffs
one
and
diff
put them
from
in a
that
module.
module,
That's not how you develop a
then I
diff.
can
In
when
order
I-
to develop a good
I
def,
bring
what
my
you
module
really
into
need
my project
is you need
space and it
to be
relates-
able to see
erase everything
your
that
defs
apply,
out here
keep
in the
the
pucker
module
brush
as it
somewhere.
is, 'cause
If
all
this
that
is your
code's been
program,
tested.
you develop your
Or I can
defs
just
out here in the
leave
pucker
stuff
brush
there and
somewhere.
Just call that particular
I don't know why
module
that's not
correctly.
writing.
It's a good
Develop your defs out here in the pucker brush somewhere as a collection,
modularization will
and
save
then
you
pull your
more than
defs
you
in
possibly
as
could
you need
realize.
them. That's the way
really
it should
will.
be done.
And
That
you
way you
need
can
to keep
test
that
them
in mind.
inside that module
It's
that you
just a
develop,
good practice
and you
to
never
modularize.
interfere with your program.
I
Does
do
that make
much the
sense?
same thing for C, C++.
I mean, just because you
C#
want a module
COBOL.
doesn't mean you build
It doesn't
the module
matter what
inside,
language it is.
or the def
If I need a
inside the
module,
program
I'll build
and then
a bunch of
transfer it
modules.
out.
I'll build
Program's got
programs
other
that build
things to do.
modules for me.
The def exists out there
Because I
strictly to be
can.
used like a
Because I see
slave.
the utility behind
That's it.
Because 99%
You can
of your
beat on it
problems
all
are
you
going to
want,
be
but
that
it's got to be a
stupid,
small
stupid
collection
period
of code.
in the wrong
It's
place.
just there to be
Or
used.
you forget your colons. It's going to be typing errors.
Indeed, the
And you
lifeblood
have
of
to
a
learn to
Python
overcome
program
these
is
typing errors.
modules. Program
This
is
is a
used
good
module
example
much as carpenters
of a
use
note
need
of a
nails.
work
If you don't
module.
have
This is a
modules in
module.
programming, no matter what programming language you're working in, be it Java classes, be it C# classes, be it C++,
I'm adjusting
classes,
the font
be
now.
it C.
I know
If you don't have modules, you're going to have real headaches.
One time you want to be...
Because that means you're constantly
you open
producing
your mouth
things
so
from
you
the
can
bottom
be heard.
up, or the top down,
And I'm
whatever way
already
you want to
jumping on
express
it. And,
If
every
build a
other
house,
time you just
build
sit
it
there,
one
"Oh,
brick at a time, right? Now you
Now
always
you
start at
yell
the
out,
bottom.
I can't
That's
see
why
it.
you hire bricklayers, people who just do that. You don't want to have to rebuild your house all the time to live in it.
All right, gentlemen, no more fun in this
Once you've got
class.
the shell built, you run with it. All right, this is, believe it or not, this is a routine that creates just a bunch of modules. That's all it does. It creates a bunch of diff statements and tosses them out. We wouldn't have computers today if it weren't for the modularization. Why would I do that? We just wouldn't have them. If we didn't have JCL to run programs in a job constellation on IBM mainframes, take a look at bones out there. We wouldn't have IBM mainframes. We couldn't manage those programs. You can put meat on that bone. Too difficult. Too many, be sure it's going to work. That's all this program does. First, let's define utility, and that's really what we're looking at. Python. What gives our programs utility? Out there and grabs our program's utility is a module, and utility is defined. Didn't want that either. Oh well, let's change this to this. Utility is defined as the state of being useful or beneficial. Stuff. I mean, that makes perfect sense. If you're a carpenter and you walk into a house and you don't drive a Brad, so that's how many modules I create. Why? I create in less than a second. Anybody. In less than a second. It doesn't fit. It takes this to run. And anytime I start a new program, I'll start with a module like this. By the same token, if I have to make some changes in it, I have to keep my wits about me. Which is why I always keep backups of everything I create. Why? Because this is going to overwrite my HTML.py module. Same thing, it doesn't fit. So whatever's in my HTML.py module gets overwritten. Oh, God. But they can be very, very different. I can't have that happen. Why not? Go.
Why would you want to rewrite something else that works?
Why would you? No. Why? You've got to be careful that you don't overwrite something that works. Utility is getting as much use out of something as you possibly can. Because you erase it. How many people here have used a screwdriver? Now that sounds really stupid. Or I don't know. But you aren't a real programmer until you've erased all your programs 9,428 times. Because your Windows gotten. Keep that in mind. Something. You use a screwdriver. So you have to put in something like this to catch you, so that you can. I use the screwdriver to listen to my 1963 name the file and you don't overwrite. To make sure my timing is right. This stuff sounds really stupid. That's an old trick. But it's true. This is how you become a productive programmer. You put your ear to the engine block, and it tells you if the timing is right. It tells you if you're missing a valve. One considers most of the mistakes you make going to make are going to be this screwdriver is designed for, colon in Python. But that's added and the diff on a screwdriver. That's a big deal. So we really have to start thinking a little bit easier. Utility. Let's look at my utilities.csv file. Now this is a file I created Can you see this one? It really, really does. Boy, I tell you. A good description of the file I created a long time ago from that program that I showed you earlier. All this file does is go out there and it uses doc strings, and it just creates a whole bunch of modules. Now, this is hardly because I should have a header file in there that says this is a picture of this program was created by Ed and what its purpose is. But basically, all it does is go out there and create a bunch of diffs. It is a collection. And I go and I put my comments in here on what I'm going to build in my doc string. Some people would argue with me and they say, no, a module is this, it's that, it's another thing. Go out there and I just work my way down, one module at a time. That's all. I put an input string in there so that I can build a trace. A trace is oftentimes very important when you're going to debug something. Wouldn't it be nice to have a beginning student, even if you're not a beginning student, traces so you can bang on them? What it does is it allows you to follow your collection as it walks through. Where's this collection going to go? Which is extremely important. Okay, let's freeze this and let's start a new video. Why? Done correctly with some forethought, modules are something we can collect and carry around from project to project. Oh God, heaven help me. How many people noticed I put in 3 thumb drives today before I found the right program? Nothing. You can yell at me, and then you can whisper something in someone else's ear. Is that what it is? Why? Huh? To find the right thumb drive.
Oh,
I've got programs on programs upon
Week
programs
8.
on thumb drives, and do you know what?
October.
I may have 5 or 6 thumb drives that look
14.
exactly the same.
Video.
That's the maximum amount of
3.
incompetence you want in a system. Where you don't know what
Eventually,
you're
I'll
looking
work
for
out a
when you
pattern
find
where
it.
it'll all look the
But
same.
you don't want to
much
run
smoother.
into that with a
I
project.
haven't done that yet.
A module is nothing more than a
This is very
collection
much
of
a
PY
learning
files. That's it. That's a module. Just a collection of PY files.
Let's erase it.
It's nothing more fancy.
And let's go back.
Let's
to
stop
our-
this right now, and we will
When
give
we
it a
look at
minute
our screen
so
like
that
this,
we can. You'll notice
reset
every module looks like every other
and
module.
get things
and
started
every module
again.
has something called
I'll go back
passing.
out to my.
The reason it gets a pass, I'll open a new one right down here,
Hopefully,
is
new
because
one
you
will
don't want it to do anything.
maybe
Does that
be
make
a little
sense?
bit more organized.
That's just out there as a
Okay.
skeleton. There's nothing in it yet. This one up here
Is this?
has a return list.
Minimize it. CIS.
That's extremely different.
126
Why?
Video.
It's going to return something to the
Week.
program, and the pass just means build the diff
8.
and throw a pass in there. You have to
October.
put a pass in there.
14.
You have to put a pass in there.
That's
And
how
when
I'm
you put
tagging
code
my
in there,
videos from
you
now on,
eradicate the pass.
Just so everybody.
You erase it, destroy it,
I know.
make it
I know,
comment
I'm a
it
boring,
out,
boring
take it out in the
individual,
woods and shoot it. I don't care
That's
what
okay,
you
I
do
like
with it,
me.
but you have to get rid of it. So, well, somebody has to like me. Now, traditionally, what I've done
Anyway.
with these types of things is a module is nothing more than a
Let me
collection of
see
PY
what the next
files.
video
We said
is
that.
so that I
a module
don't,
can
screw
reside
this up.
inside of the folder that the program's in, or
Or
it
the
can
next
reside
page
in
is.
another folder. If a module resides in another folder or another location,
Right there.
then you have to sit down and you've got to play with paths
seem
and
to be
work with
frozen.
path statements. This
I
isn't
don't like being.
the focus of this class this week. So we're not even going to mess with path statements because path statements can get ugly.
Close.
It's not that they intentionally get ugly.
There.
It's just that you'll forget to set a path statement and then you'll get errors that you just won't understand right off the top of your head.
You know what happens when you freeze?
So keep that in mind.
Go
We're
out
going
here
to
to
make
your-
the assumption
your
that in this
lecture
particular
space, you
today,
start it back
all
up
our
again,
modules will exist in one particular file.
and you go to where you were.
Project file. A module, as I said, is simply a collection of Python code. It can
That
contain
looks familiar.
functions, variables. It
And
can
I'll pull
contain
all this
anything
stuff
you
out.
want in a Python program.
That
Sometimes
looks
at the
familiar.
very base of a module, you'll see an _ main. Yeah, all right.
looks-
Now,
it looks
you
very
can
much
call a
like
module
this.
anything you want to call a module. I'll pull all that stuff out so that hopefully it won't still be there. But why would you, come here. You. How'd you say that? Louder.
Naya Murgaria?
What? Louder. It's a volcano in Nepal.
Is it?
Yes.
But it's not written in Nepali. It's written in a different script.
Oh my God, you mean you didn't know what it was and you're from Nepal?
We don't have volcano, do we?
Yes, you have a volcano. I found one right there just for
We have
you.
earthquake.
What's wrong with naming it after all volcanoes?
It's not a volcano.
It's not a volcano, it's a script. It doesn't tell you anything about it. This is really bizarre. I'm glad you said that because that just adds to my argument. You name things, you don't name things after that because nobody knows what this means. Nobody knows what this means. I didn't know what it meant. I had to dig it up out of the bowels of Google land to find a volcano in Nepal. And I'm not even sure it's not Pakistan or one of those other places because it just said Nepali region. Now I don't know what that region is, so. But anyway, that's a problem. If you name a utility file or a module something like utilities dick, then that came out wrong. That just came out wrong. You at least know it's got something to do with dictionaries, right?
I guess.
In Python, it does. In Python, it does. This is just an acronym they use in Python, and I never much gave it a thought. I didn't give it a thought because I was busy writing it. But anyway, keep that in mind. You know it has to do with dictionaries in Python. You may not know what's in the utility, but you know it has to do with dictionaries. Okay? Let's pass a rule. Thou shalt not name modules a mysterious name that only you understand. Heck, you come from Nepal and you didn't understand that one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I'm trying to be ridiculous.
Has something familiar.
It has to be something that makes sense in the team, in the organization. When I went to graduate school, I had an instructor who named all his servers after some obscure reference to Harry Potter. Well, I got news for you folks. I've never read Harry Potter. So I didn't understand his references. And he thought this was just appalling, that a computer programmer doesn't read Harry Potter. I never understood his logic behind that, but it would have been better to have it named Server 1, Server 2, Server 3, and work the way down. It wasn't, though. If you look at a module, the first thing you should notice is that if you looked at my module a minute ago, the first thing you should notice is most of it's empty. Okay? I keep modules hanging around like that, empty, where it has a bunch of empty stuff in it, so that I can fill them up as I come across the material that I need to put out in the module. The fact is, the entire module will be a template container in which I will populate as I need. If I don't need all these modules, I can easily go through and diff them or delete them, or I can leave them there because they're not going to do anything to the program and it's not going to hurt my sensibility. The module is divided up into two sections, a docstring section and then the module section, the residence section for the modules. The defs, the actual processing, are at the bottom. I do this because, even though this may seem a little unnatural, there is a rationale to my madness. The rationale to my madness is that I can always use the magic of a help function to help me find what's in a module. It doesn't do me any good to have a bunch of modules laying around in a library somewhere if I can't sit down and easily access them and determine what I'm looking for in that module. Do you agree?
Yeah.
I mean, they just become, I don't know, sheets of paper piled on my desk. Only I know which sheet of paper to go to. That's a big problem. So I actually write a small program called @help.py. And let's go look at @help.py real quick. There's all it is. That's it. That's my @help.py. Now that's not my @help. That's a notepad version of it. But this is what @help.py does. If you can look at this, you can see that the project I was working on used canned code and CCs and stuff like that. But it also used utilities list, which are list processes I use in my utilities. So when I go out and I click on it, behold, it lists all the things I've done in my utilities. And it also comes down to tell me if they're empty. Eventually, I'll hit a spot where there'll be empty utilities. See that? List H, list I, they're empty utilities. They haven't been filled yet with anything, so there's nothing in there. Everything up above has been filled, and that means that I can go out here, and once I've done all this stuff, I can keep it forever and have a quick way of referencing it like I would an index. Some people like to arrange things alphabetically. I don't do that. I do it this way because I read fast enough where I can go down and my names are names of the processes I do are descriptive enough where I rarely make a mistake. If you'll notice, the name of one of these processes is come on. LIS stands for list processes, or the utility, and read a file into a list. File name. What do you suppose that does?
You put the file name.
You give it the file name, you import the project, and you've got a process that reads a file into a list. That's all it does. Duh. It can't be any simpler than that. It tells me what it does. And if I go out on a job and they say you have to change the name, that's fine. I can change the name on a job. But this gives me information, intelligence that I didn't have before. So that I never have to worry about a boss coming up to me saying, can you read a file into a list? Of course I can. Pull out the utility out of my pocket, give me the file. Bingo, bango, and beads, it goes into a list. It's that simple. So I'm just trying to teach you to be programmers and think about your tasks, not simply sit down and cut code. Okay? And if we go down here and we look at the read, put files into a list. Come on, baby. Quick, quick. You will see down here at the base, functions, somewhere, read a file into a list. Now, it's going to automatically list these out in alphabetical order for you in the base, but you don't care, do you? I mean, once you've figured out which one you know, and these are all this is all tested code in this portion of the program anyway, so you don't have an issue. We'll kill this program and we'll start our next video. CIS126 Python. Does anyone remember what video this is?
Yeah, it's 4.
VIDEO 4. Week 8, October 14th. God, if I ever get this down pat, I will be amazed. Reset and start. Let's go back to our program. So that's how I work with every video or every program I work out. I actually carry around a bunch of functions in my hands that I've used in the past over and over again on thumb drives, and I just import them. I use aliases. You'll notice that in Python, I haven't really gone into this because I haven't really gone into this. But if we take a look at my @help, I use an alias. An alias is and also known as. In Python, when you import an entire class or an entire module, you can assign it an alias. This is my list in the file. This is what it's called in the file. And I refer to it as utilities as UL. Why would I give it an alias? Anybody. So I don't have to keep typing utilities list. Utilities list works fine as a module name. But to be honest with you, if you've got 9 million utilities in the utilities list, which is probably too many. You should maybe consider making 3 or 4 different utility lists if you have that many. But imagine typing utilities all the time and not making a mistake. It's not going to happen. You will make mistakes. Now, Python gives you the ability of using an alias and typing that into whatever command you want to be, so that if you want the utilities list read a file, it would be ul.lis read a file into list, or whatever the name is. One of the other beauties behind this is when I'm doing my coding, once I've already got this file name, close this. Once I've already got this file name, let's go up here to, I can take this, and there's my file name right there. I can cut and paste this with Control-C and grab that line and just move it into my code, and bingo, bango, and beads, there it is. And to point this out, we'll go, what am I doing here? I ran this. Let's kill this. Let's open up this for a proc. And let's get rid of this and just say, I wish you wouldn't laugh behind my back. It hurts my feelings. Control-V. There's my whole process. And I think I can access it like this. I haven't done this in a while. File, save it, and run it. No, that won't work. But missing one required, file name. Okay, do you understand what I'm getting at? Can't see it? Oh, good. Then when I screwed up, it didn't matter. But anyway, the idea is that with using doc statements properly and setting things up like that, you can scrape your names, and that way you don't make a mistake. I come from an IBM background, and when I started in IBM land, one of the basic rules was everything was epsidic, and that meant that you could only have 8 characters for the name of a function or a file. 8 characters. That meant in order to write a file or a function that meant anything, you had to start cutting down characters so that people could sit there and make some logic out of it, okay? Very much we began to read in acronyms, similar to what I just put up on Dick. That makes perfect sense to me. I didn't realize how bad it would sound, but it made perfect sense to me. We would cut out all vowels. And I still write in IBMEs. I still will write a name and cut out all the vowels. Because believe it or not, you can read 8 characters and realize what something does without the vowels, even though it's misspelled. Remember, you only have 8 possibilities. That means 64 possible combinations of those exact names, those exact letters. That's a big deal. That's a limiting factor. So you learn to do things like that. Well, you don't have to do that in Python. Python allows you to write a name, I think, up to 30 characters. I don't think I've ever had to write a name 30 characters. I mean, that would be like going from Manchester to New York and not stopping at Brooklyn. And I still think that might fit in there somewhere. Do you follow what I'm getting at? So you don't have to worry about those inefficiencies in a name. But if you had to write it all the time, you want to use an alias. And that's where you come up with this epsidic stuff. And you'll learn it as you go along. But some people never learn it. Some people do. Again, this is just talking about my AKA or my help process. and it acts for me as an index so that I sit there, and my doc string very much acts as an index. In fact, in a lot of modules, you will see that my doc string is more important than my comments inside the program, because my doc string contains information about my program. A good example is this. I wrote a screen driver. And in that screen driver, I have a utilities screen lines. And we'll make this a little bit bigger so that you can see it. Configure. Apply. Everybody can see that? Up here, you've got a returns the headline. Everybody knows all programs have a header line. The header line is, in our particular case, this right here, the header line. Building that header line is not such an easy thing. But if you go down and you look in the base here, you see how the header line is built. And you pay attention to it. It has other procs that it calls to build the header line, but your header line is simply done like that. And I've got a check line in there. What's a check line what do you suppose a check line does for me? A check line makes sure that my program doesn't exceed 79 characters, or my line doesn't exceed 79 characters. That way, when I'm developing it, if I make a mistake, and I do, I'm able to catch it in development. And what this does is this whole routine right here produces this stuff. These are all my screens put together in one big module. Why do you look confused, Scott? Or Peter. Well.
It's just a lot to look at.
It's a lot to look at. It's a lot to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. It's a lot to think about. But a lot of times in large projects, that's exactly what they'll do. And you call them as you need them. This is an example of a driver. This is a driver that I built that calls the screens from that I was just showing you. This driver looks like this. That's all it looks like. And if I want to call a screen out of order or add a screen, guess what I do? I go into my driver, I add it, and I just run it that way. It's not that complicated a process. But all this is produced by a program. Why do I produce it with a program? The same reason I hate PowerPoints. I always screw up in PowerPoints. I don't like them. They're just difficult for me to envision. I can see the screens. But I can't see PowerPoints. I can see how this works, but I can't see PowerPoints. And then you run across another professor who uses nothing but PowerPoints. Loves them. He sees them. They see them. I am so used to working with what they call kicks, which is basically a screen driver, that this process makes far more sense to me than PowerPoint. So you keep banging around like this, and eventually you'll be like me, weird. Ask my granddaughter, she'll tell you. You're a weird one, Grandpa. Well, yeah, sometimes. All right, after writing all that code, you've got a pre-existing routine that you keep hanging around. And that pre-existing routine in some lib somewhere stays there, and you can grab it and use it as you need it and as you don't need it. You no longer have to write that code. The practical increase is it'll dazzle your boss. Really will. It took me to write these programs, these utilities, it's an hour here, an hour there. When I'm sitting there doing some programming, I realize I'm doing this over and over and over and over again. So I'll just sit down and add it to one of my utilities, somewhere where it's appropriate. And then I'll sit there and I'll run them. And I'll carry them around on a thumb drive when I go out on a job for something like Python or Java. And I have the code written for me. I have the code tested for me. It's particularly important in C++ when somebody sits there and says, well, you've got a memory leak. No, I don't. My code works because it's been around for 10 years, and you're the only one to complain about a memory leak. So that means somebody you hired built a memory leak in there. Now, I know that sounds terribly arrogant, and it's not meant to. What it means is basically you can do a lot just by storing your code up in modules and save yourself a whole lot of misery. I know I talked to somebody over the weekend. I like the analysis, I like the design, I hate the code. Somewhere along the line, somebody's got to write some code. And if you've already written it and you wrote it 10 years ago, and you've forgotten what you wrote 10 years ago, but it still works today, does it matter? You've just kept using it and using it and using it, right? So it doesn't matter. Let's freeze this. And let's keep moving. Let's make another video. Oh, I didn't erase it this time. Good. That means I can keep track of what video I'm on. Week 5, or video 5. So we'll keep walking through these videos, and ultimately what we'll do is maybe you'll get an idea on how to use modules. All right? Actually, it can save you a whole lot of headaches. It really can. In my particular case, it matters not to me if you've got a module that's filled with a whole bunch of empty defs because I built my skeleton and I kept my defs in the skeleton. If it matters to somebody, if you go out on a job and a guy looks at it and says, why'd you leave all these empty defs there? They're not going to affect anything. You might want to have a feel for your work partners, and you might pull them all out. But the plain fact of the matter is they're not going to hurt anything, so it doesn't matter, not to me at least. It also allows me some versatility. If half is 6 months down the road, I want to add something, I've got a place to add it. So it comes in handy that way. But that's not for everybody. A good rule of thumb is you decide what you might need stuffed away in a module and develop a module and put it in there. Another good rule is when you write code, don't write code when code is that you don't write code when code can write it for you. See, I screw up my word. If you can get some code that writes code for you, like that module I showed you with the screens, use it. Use it. Don't write code when you can get something that's already tested that writes code for you. It's easy to write code. It's hard to debug it. Okay? And if you've already got something that will write some code for you neatly and organized, you don't have to debug it. Can you see this? It sounds kind of stupid, doesn't it? Code writing code. I mean, how hard can writing code be? It's not how hard can writing code be, it's how productive can you be when you write code. And if you're constantly making stupid mistakes like leaving colons off, and you will, it will drive you bananas. The whole idea is to keep your hair on your head. Nobody wants to look like me. This is also part of learning to write tools. Everybody needs to learn to write tools. Tools are things that come in handy that you carry around on a thumb drive that are going to help you write your code. There's a scripting language associated with IBM mainframes. It's called sync-sort. Nobody knows sync-sort. Nobody. God doesn't know sync-sort. It's so complicated. But you can write a whole bunch of small scripted tools in what they call recs, or you could at the time. I don't know. I haven't used recs in a long time. That run your sync-sort commands. List your sync-sort commands in a nice organized fashion, and they always work. Because they're commands that have been tested before, and recs just sends the commands to the machine, and you keep them handy on a thumb drive. Automation is not an easy thing to see. Sometimes it's a difficult thing to see, but automation sure as hell beats writing every line of code. Do you follow me? You can say that you write code that generates code. Okay, I do that. I've been doing that for years. Build a tool when you can use one. You can't always build a tool. Don't get lost in this concept that, oh, I can build a tool to do that for me. You can't always build a tool. But for very simple processes, you can build a tool. And when you build a tool, you can take that tool and you can carry it around with you, and it will save you a whole lot of misery. Making a tool that will reduce the number of keystrokes consequently reduces your errors. Your errors aren't going to be in logic more often than not. Your errors will be in coding. You left a colon off. You misspelled 2 words. Something like that. Something that's just everybody does. That's what writing a tool can help you with. Errors will be typing, not logic. Wow. It just makes sense that you limit these errors as much as possible. All right, now this goes out to my work file again, the one you couldn't see. That's what this, can you see it now? Can you see it now? Huh? Yeah. This goes out to my work. That's not a particularly complicated file, is it? You agree with that? Is it complicated?
What, this one?
Yeah.
Not super complicated.
No, it's not complicated. There's nothing wrong with it. It builds my skeleton. And then I take my skeleton and I work with it.
Well, like, there are some stuff that we don't know what it does.
Well, that's what you need to ask me for.
Yeah, ask what you don't know.
Ask what you don't know and keep going, but ask loud enough so everybody can hear, not I can't see that.
Hey, that was this guy.
What don't you understand?
Like, when you were at F0, you go like, right?
FO. File open, file close. That's an old convention.
Okay.
That's just an old convention I use. I should maybe say file, F-I-L-E, open, but I don't.
Like if you could write it in short form, where you want to extend it.
Right, that's correct. Why would I want to extend it? Excuse me a minute. I have a phone call. It's from Deerfield Beach, Florida. These are people calling me about Medicare. Well, let's answer them.
Give them a minute here.
Oh, this is Aaron.
Hello, how are you?
I'm calling on behalf of the Medicare Plus card. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Don't call me again. I've said this like 8 times.
You are an active member.
God, put things into perspective, folks.
No, I do that too, but I speak in different language, so they get confused too.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you talking
My wife yells at me when I pick up the phone and start to swear at them in French. She says, they might understand you. No, that's all that is. That's just a convention I used for years. FO open, FO write, FO, that means file open, or file operation. It's just something I've used for years. You might sit down and write down file writes, or write file. You've done the reading on files, I take it. You've done the reading on files, I take it. You've done the readings on files, I take it. I gave it to you about 2 weeks ago. Oh my gosh.
I think so.
It's, don't ask me to remember. I done give it to you and forgot. But I know I gave it to you. You should have already the readings on files. But those are just conventions I use. And if you need to debug this program, just pull it up on your screen, sit there and look at it, and walk through it, and do it in another browser so that you can freeze it. It's not gonna go anywhere. And that's all this does. This just writes a skeleton. That's it. Just a skeleton. And it doesn't have to be particularly beautiful, but it fits the nomenclature or the structure I like to use. And the only thing you have to change in this is this right here, because this is going to tell you what your file out is and what you're going to call your skeleton. Let's close this. Let's move on to the next screen. Let's take a look at my utility CSV2 file. I don't even remember what that is. I wrote it so long ago. But it should be here. Oh, I know where that is. It's in another folder. And I don't have access to it right now. Ooh, where are you? You're on my E drive. I keep that in my Python code depository. Why? Why would I keep it there? So I know where to find it. I can carry it around with me. And this is what it looks like. This has a whole bunch of files in it. And one of the things that a lot of people don't seem to realize is if you sit there and the first thing you do when you go to add something, you type in Control F, brings up a find. The place I'm going to add is CSVH. So I can type in here CSVH. Find next, and it's going to drop me down to CSVH so that I'm not going scroll madness. And I can go back up to CSVH, and I simply change the data in CSVH or whatever I'm going to add. I add my record, the fields I need to go, and my comments, and then I do a CSVH, and I move my comments up to my doc string, and bingo, bango, and beads, there it is. And we can go out there and we can look at these things very easily by going into my ZT help. I don't know why I called it ZT help this time. CSV2 and running it. Now, when it gives me a squeezed text like this, that means that it's got too many lines in there. Just click on that, and bingo, it drops it down. So my skeleton is built. I now have an index built, and I know what I'm looking at. I can now scrape names, and I know this takes a little bit of practice. This isn't going to come with you overnight, and I would be an idiot to say it does. But I can now scrape names and make things work a little bit better, and it's a little bit more organized. Not only that, as I'm developing code, by keeping this particular thing open, if I want to look at what screens look like, I can go out there and do help screens, and it's going to pull up what my screens are. And I can do it just, well, let's just see. I have no idea what US screens are. Why? Why don't I have any idea? Because I wrote them so long ago, I've forgotten. Oh my God, I've forgotten something. But there I have a blank screen. That's my screen module. So I can build my screens there. I can do whatever I want in this, and it works well. And it's an approach to a program. Let's freeze this. Let's go back to video 5, and let's make video 6. I didn't think we'd go into 6 videos today. Reset and start. But techniques like this allow us to do a screen-driven program. Now, I know that these techniques had to be beat into my head. What does that mean, Peter?
Gotta practice them a lot.
You got to practice them. You really do. You've got to practice them. But once you practice them, and after you develop them, and it's an important thing to develop in a basic programming or an introductory programming class, because when you go into data structures, I'm not going to teach you this stuff. These techniques are going to be gone. And if you're constantly rewriting code and rewriting code and rewriting code and rewriting code, you're only going to go nuts. And you don't have to. You can address the problem, which is what the focus of a data structures class is, and not necessarily the code. And if you have a decent collection of code, you can go out there and grab that code, run with it, use it and run with it, and keep going. Okay? Believe me, I put a lot of, I know you don't believe this, but I put a lot of thought into my lectures, especially since they've been cut down to 2 hours and I have to do things a little differently. Oh, then you program it. Get rid of your empty diffs if you want to. The real goal is to make things as easy as possible. Do I look like I'm going backwards? What you don't want to do is to overcomplicate the process. Overcomplicating the process means that you've got 17 different imports out there, and you can't get something to run, so you try a different import. You try a different import. You can't do that. You have to get something running, get it running well, and test it inside the module itself, and then try to run it. Build a tool, build it to do one thing and one thing only. If you go back to that screen module I showed you, that had the first line, the header line of the screen, all it did was structure the header line and then replace it with data that it grabbed from a flat file somewhere. Oh, this is a good example. This is the example I used. Wow, I can't believe I did that, right? This is actually your line. This is the line you put out there. You'll notice I put a comment up on top with a measurement. Why? Because I don't want to exceed 79 characters across the screen. I only want to go out 78. I throw a bunch of Q's in there. Why do I throw Q's? Because I can use the replace verb in Python to replace it with the project name that I got from someplace else, and the integrity of my spacing stays the same. Do you follow me?
Yeah, because otherwise the author thing would move.
Otherwise the author thing would move, and you can't have the author thing move. You need the integrity. So that sets it aside. Now, if I put a name out there that's more Q's than I've got posted, and why do I use Q? Because it's the most infrequently used letter in the alphabet, in our alphabet. I don't know, is it, you don't have Q in Nepalese, do you?
We have another alphabet.
Pardon?
We have different alphabets.
Yeah, totally different. You know, at the risk of saying I want to put some
Yeah, we have the
same alphabet,
Yeah.
at the risk of using some obscure alphabet that nobody understands, I use the letter Q. And everybody knows there is no such word as Q, 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 right? I could have used A. I didn't. I used Q because it's the most infrequently used letter in the American alphabet, or the English Western European alphabet that we've become comfortable with. I don't even know what our alphabet is called, but it's makes sense. So it maintains your integrity. See this? I said each line has to have a screen number. Each line in my screens changes. If you'll notice right here, down here, I've got a screen name. I got another bunch of cues. This is my second line in my screen. My screen right here, see this screen right here? This increments itself. So if I have 75 more screens, it's going to keep adding on to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is all done working within an Excel spreadsheet. Why? Because it checks the length on one side and allows me to keep it around 30 characters. And 2, it allows to increment it so that I can walk through it. Oh my God, I've just saved myself a ton of headaches. You don't see it right now, do you? Honestly. Well, I have to put 6 lectures a week together. Think about it that way. I need a tool to make it manageable. Or else I'd go nuts. PowerPoint-wise alone, I'd want to commit PowerPoint aside. If you find your individual diffs inside of your utility getting around 30 lines, you need to split that up. Okay, your module can call as many modules inside that module as it wants to. So it adds to your ability. It makes it work a little bit. But if it's over 30 lines, you really want to sit down and consider splitting it up. You may need 30 lines, but more often than not, you're not. Okay? I use 30 lines just as a key. And I'm frozen again. Be damned. I don't know why I froze again. Well, you know why I'm freezing? I'm freezing because this mouse moves. This mouse switches position on the screen. Driver, let's just jump out to the end. Oh, take a look at the number. I told you the number changes. My wife didn't believe that when she first saw it. She goes through these things, and do you know what she checks for? Spelling. Yes, I have an editor. She didn't know she was signing on for that when she married me, but she did. We were at 152. There we are. Kill it and keep moving. Some rules to keep in mind. Keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate it. 2, every diff you build, put a comment in the doc string. That way it always acts as an index. If you build a diff and you don't put a comment in the doc string, then you're making a huge mistake. Okay? If the diff procedure is over 30 lines, consider breaking it up. That doesn't mean at 31 lines you have to break it up into 2 15 and a 16 line thing. But if it's over 30 lines and it looks like it's getting increasingly complicated, you need to break it up into smaller routines. Keep it small and keep it lovely. Test each procedure inside the module. If you test each procedure inside the module, then you're sure it's going to work outside the module when you use it as an import. Does that make sense? That might sound really silly, but that's what you do. You test each procedure in the module. Keep your eye open for routines that you're using all the time. Take those routines and stick them in a module. Be they a print routine, be them a structure routine, whatever it is. Keep an eye open for it because you're only going to use it again. So why are you sitting there? I don't write code anymore without Google because I forget so much. And I will sit there and I'll spin my wheels. You don't want to spin your wheels. Eliminate the error by doing simple stuff. And I think this is a good place to stop. Let's take a look. The lab this week is to build a module that will take your screen files and convert them into a Python module. That means if you've got 25 different screens out there, you build a module that reads them in one at a time and converts it into a screen module, which is all concatenated. Okay? Because you're going to need, how many screens are you going to need to run your project? Did you come up with?
Like the final?
Yeah, to start, this is the final. We're working on it now. What'd you think? You just don't do anything in this class? I mean, this is the final. How many screens do you think you're going to need? Did you come up with over the last week that you think you're going to need?
I wasn't really sure what to do. I only made 4.
4. Let's start, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a start. So how many screens need to go in your screen file?
4.
4. But
Yeah.
what if you need 10?
You could always add more.
You can add them. That's the whole idea. And all your screen files go in the screen module. And that way, you know where to go when you've got a screen. Because what will happen is you'll have so many screens out there, or so many different modules out there, you will be naming them after that obscure volcano. And you won't mean to. You won't mean to. And that's okay. Let's keep moving here. So that's your process. It doesn't need to be complicated. If you need help, take the time to review the videos. There should be some hidden gems. Oh, see? She missed one. She missed one. Hidden gems in them. And basically, that's the end of our lecture today. And that's it.